This video is sponsored by Incogni. So far this year, 76,000 migrants have entered the EU illegally, and they have used 6 main routes. The eastern land border, mainly through Belarus into Poland and Lithuania, with around 3,800 illegal migrant entries in the first half of 2025. The Western Balkan route, passing through countries like Serbia and North Macedonia into Hungary and Croatia. The Eastern Mediterranean route, primarily from Turkey into Greece or Cyprus. The Central Mediterranean route, from Libya and Tunisia into Italy, Malta, and sometimes Greece. The Western Mediterranean route, from Morocco and Algeria into Spain via land or sea. And the Western African route, mainly from Mauritania and Senegal to the Canary Islands. Compared to the first 6 months last year, most of these routes have seen a clear decline. In fact, irregular migration is down 20% compared to the same period last year. But there are 2 exceptions. The Western Mediterranean route is slightly up. But more notably, the Central Mediterranean route is seeing a surge. It has brought in around 29,000 people this year, almost 15% more than last year, and nearly half of all irregular entries into the EU. Why? Mostly because of Libya. Italy and Greece have already made a desperate plea to the EU for help, especially with Russian interference expected in the region. So, in this video, we'll break down what's happening, why Libya matters, and whether the EU can actually do anything about it. First, we need to talk about Libya, because its political situation is a bit of a mess. The country is 3 times the size of Spain, with just over 7 million people, but it doesn't have one functioning government. Instead, Libya is split into 3 main zones of control. First, the west, the blue area, where the capital Tripoli is. This is run by the government of national unity, led by Prime Minister Abdulhamid Dbeibeh. They're internationally recognized, including by the EU. Then there's the east, the red zone, where a rival government claims authority, the Government of National Stability, or GNS. In theory, the GNS is a civilian administration, but in reality, it's backed by the Libyan National Army, in short LNA, and controlled by the 81-year-old General Khalifa Haftar. Haftar is the de facto power in the east, running what's effectively a military-backed regime based in Benghazi. The government he supports are not recognized by the UN or the EU, but they still control large parts of the country. And finally, the gray areas. These zones are where tribes, militias, and armed groups hold power. Control here is often fragmented, shifting, and very chaotic. So yeah, it's no surprise that thousands of people are trying to leave for Europe. Now imagine how hard it is for the EU to make a migration deal when there isn't just one government to negotiate with. But the EU tried anyway. Last week, the EU Migration Commissioner, Magnus Brunner, together with ministers from Italy, Greece, and Malta, visited Libya. First stop, Tripoli, where they met with the internationally recognized government of national unity. No deal was signed, but talks made progress. Next stop, Benghazi, to meet warlord Khalifa Haftar. And that's where things kind of fell apart. Without any warning, 2 senior ministers from Haftar's self-declared GNS government showed up, uninvited and unapproved by the EU. And here's the problem. The government in eastern Libya isn't recognized by the UN or the EU. And meeting these ministers would have looked like the EU was giving the government recognition, which many believe was Haftar's goal all along. You know, some nice photo ops with European officials standing next to ministers from an unrecognized regime. So the Europeans refused. And Haftar? He did not take it well. Enraged, the 81-year-old general declared the delegation persona non grata, which basically means you're not welcome here. And he kicked them out of town. And now everyone is blaming everyone else, as the EU's plan to stop people smuggling across the Mediterranean from Libya is once again in disarray. But the plot thickens, and this part is critical. Guess who our military dictator Khalifa Haftar is close to? None other than Vladimir Putin. That relationship was on full display just a few months ago. During a military parade in Benghazi, they showcased Russian weaponry. You know, armored vehicles, tanks, air defense systems, and heavy artillery. And it's not just about arms. Russia is allegedly negotiating a naval base in Tobruk, paving the way for a permanent military presence on NATO's southern flank. And even more alarming, Some reports say Moscow plans to install long-range missiles near Sabah, not far from mainland Europe. One EU diplomat even warned, Russia's role in Libya continues to expand, using it as a central node in its African strategy. This is also because Russia has lost its grip on Syria, where it once had major military bases under Bashar al-Assad. But with Assad gone and a new government in power, Russia has been pushed out and no longer has the access to the Mediterranean Sea. So now, Moscow is pitting to Libya, where Khalifa Haftar offers a more reliable foothold. And here's where things get even more serious. There are already signs that Libya's smuggling networks are being used to support Russia's strategic goals, helping Moscow evade sanctions and even weaponize migration. And as long as Haftar and Putin stay close, it's very unlikely the EU can make any meaningful deal on migration with Libya. Which means the central Mediterranean route, already the busiest and most dangerous, will likely stay open. And if Russian influence grows, it could get much worse. Just like we saw in Belarus, when the Kremlin helped push migrants across EU borders to cause chaos. The results are already quite clear. Some 9,000 people have arrived in Crete from Libya since the start of the year, most of them in recent weeks, already almost double the number of the whole of 2024. Something needs to happen, and so far the EU nor its member states have an answer. Here's what I think. The overall drop in migration numbers this year is actually a bit of a success story. EU policies are starting to work, especially the deals made with North African countries, like the Commission's agreement with Tunisia. But Libya is going to be so much harder. And honestly, I only see one real way forward. Keep crushing the Russian economy. The EU needs to pass the 18th sanctions package. And more importantly, cut its energy ties with Russia by 2027 as planned. Preferably sooner. I mean, it's been over 3 years since the war started. How has this still not happened? Because with a shrinking Russian budget, Putin won't be able to keep funding local proxies like Khalifa Haftar. We as Europeans need to understand that all of this is connected. Dealing with Russia also helps us deal with migration. And to anyone saying that we should stop supporting Ukraine, just imagine what happens if Ukraine falls. Or if Russia grows stronger and destabilizes even more in Africa. We would be looking at another 2016-style migration crisis, potentially much worse. A quick thank you to Incogni for sponsoring this video. Let me tell you about something that happened recently. I was checking my email, half asleep, when I noticed an urgent message from what looked like my bank. It said there'd been suspicious activity on my account, and I needed to click a link to verify my details. Now, I've seen enough phishing emails to spot the obvious ones, but this one had the bank's logo, the right formatting, and even my partial account number. I had to double check, even triple check, whether it was real or fake. And that's how close these scams get. And the reason they're so convincing? Because our personal data is everywhere. Data brokers collect and sell info like your name, email, phone number, and even your recent purchases. That data ends up in the hands of marketeers, spammers, scammers, you name it. And for a long time, there was literally nothing you could do about it. Until now. That's where Incogni comes in. Incogni is a tool that helps you fight back. It automatically sends data removal requests to dozens, sometimes hundreds of data brokers on your behalf. I've been using it myself, and it's surprisingly satisfying to get those confirmation that your data has been wiped from yet another shady database. So, if you want to reduce your risk of scams and reclaim a little bit of digital privacy, head to incogni.com/EU-made-simple or use the link in the description for an exclusive 60% off their annual plan. Thank you for watching this video, and a special thanks to our presidents, Jan Schauke, Christian Peter HEVD, Daniel Unite Europe, Stefan Rashid, and Mr. Probot. See you in the next video.